All right, guys, we're doing a marriage series. It's Married for Life. We are on part 3, and this is marriage Q&A. Now, it's not free form like you may guess of like Q&A, like anybody can just throw out whatever question. I've already got the questions, and so I'll be going through those, but it's a bit of a grab bag. So normally a sermon has a start, and then we kind of move around, and then we eventually get up on altitude, and then we land the plane, and it's all this nice journey. This isn't like that at all. This is like a junk drawer of just different topics. Every household has a junk drawer, right? You guys all have junk drawers? And when you try to open it, you can't open it because you got all that junk that's just kind of locked in right there, and you get it out about 4 inches, and you're like, the junk drawer. You're going to fish around and like push something down and then pull it out, and then it's just an array of all the things that you think you'll use one day, but you're never actually going to use. I opened our junk drawer yesterday, and there's sparklers in there from like 1995. We're never going to use them. And I thought, I'm going to throw them away. And I couldn't do it. The junk drawer abides. I'm not getting rid of it. Today's sermon is a junk drawer of stuff. And so without further ado, I'm just going to jump in it. Very first one, is marriage for everyone? Actually, let me just tell you what we're getting into. So you guys watching online, distracted by 1,000 other videos coming up, you'll decide of like, hey, is this something? Here's the topics. Is marriage for everyone? How do you find a good spouse? What does the Bible say about divorce? How do we fight in a healthy way? How do you keep the fire from going out in a marriage? What about gay marriage? What does a healthy sex life look like? Help, my marriage is in serious trouble and maybe dead. What do I do about it? Those are the questions we're tackling today. I'll pull no punches because, again, my job as your pastor is to be the mailman. God said it, and I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I'm not ashamed of the counsel of God, even though man may hate me for it. You may love some aspects and other stuff. You're like, well, I don't like that. You will be wrestling with the word of God itself. If you don't like something, usually I just be like, man, I feel that too, because there's stuff that I struggle with also. So I'm there in the trenches with you. A fallen human that will revile against some parts of the Word of God. But make no mistake, we're reading from the Bible. You'll notice how much scripture we deal with in these sermons. That's because it's not what I have to say. It's what the Lord has to say. The author of life gets to define the constraints of how we should live it. That's what we believe at Grace City Rome. So, is marriage for everyone? Most will marry. However, not all marry. In the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 7, Paul talks about this exact issue, and he talks about the gift of singleness. And he phrases it like that, as a gift. Now, some people who haven't married, who desperately want to marry, they're like, this doesn't feel like a gift. I want a good husband. I can't find one. I came to your church, John, to find one. Where are they hiding? Where did you put them? Is it him? Like, yes, it is. Let's give her a moment to go ahead and link up. That's very romantic. Congratulations, you two. No, it doesn't feel like a gift, but Paul points out, no, it can be. He says, a married man is concerned for the affairs of his wife and his kids. He's got obligations and tasks. He's got troubles. He's got problems that he's got to deal with. Now, we'd say that these are blessed things and they make you better and they bring so much joy, but regardless, it is a certain amount of emotional energy, time, financial strain, right? Same thing with a woman. She can't be fully devoted to the Lord or to what her calling is. She's also concerned with the needs of her husband and that of her family. Some people are called to singleness. And in that, the Lord allows a blessing to be unleashed that you can do more beneficial missionary work than somebody who has interests that are divided. This is what Paul's argument is. In other words, Mother Teresa can live in the squalor of Calcutta, feeding orphans and devoting her entire life to this sacrificial service. She didn't have to take care of a husband. That's what she's doing. Paul was the same way. Paul lived an incredibly difficult life. Paul was probably ugly as David Allen Coe, just beat to a pulp. Seriously, no. He got 40 lashes are supposed to kill a man. So you get the 40 lashes minus 1. He got that 5 times. So you imagine there wasn't a part of the Apostle Paul's body that wasn't just covered in gnarly, gross scars. He got beat 3 times with rods. He got stoned to death once, and I believe he was resurrected, but he was stoned to death. That's where everyone grabs a rock and you all, basically play a game of dodgeball where it's just turning into a bloody pulp in front of you. That's what it is. He was shipwrecked. He was constantly in danger from bandits, from people trying to kill him all the time, whereas these narrow escapes, try to do that with a wife. That's really difficult. That's a very, very arduous lifestyle. And so Paul was able to devote himself fully to the work of the Lord. He was able to do incredible things and endure incredible hardship because his interests weren't divided. Some people have that gift. The trick is if you are called to singleness, understand that it is a gift and to be able to go through that. For most, though, the Lord uses marriage, and that's what you're called to. The goal for you single folks, though, is to be content with whatever the Lord has called you to, not demanding of him, not shaking your fist silently at the heavens, demanding that God should do such and such, or holding your love or affection to the Lord hostage unless he delivers on what you've prayed for, and that was that perfect spouse. Some can become so desperate for that spouse, so desperate for that, God is revealing in it that your great need for it recognizes that you actually still have great needs for him yourself. If you need a spouse, you're probably not ready for one. Now, I say that for the majority of us. If you're a single mom, nope, that's not true. You need a spouse to be able to help raise a family. That is a real need. That's not an existential longing there. That's a logistical necessity, isn't it? Kids are tough, and kids are raised best with a man and a woman working together as a married couple to be able to raise kids. So take that general wisdom that Paul has given you in Corinthians 7, and that allows us to answer the question. Next question. How do you find a good spouse? Well, first, probably don't start at the bar. Like, we met at the club. Yeah, there is a certain character that's going to follow the place that you met him at first. I'm like, well, she was working her shift. No, probably not a keeper. Meet him at church. I met my bride at church, and that's where a godly woman's going to be on Sunday. She'll be at a church. Same with a dude. If you're looking for a good spouse, look in the church. A good man should be not only attending church, but he should be serving in church. He should be easy to find. People speak well of him. He's connected in. And so that's what a good man should be doing. And if you can't find him there, I would immediately look at the pastor and look at the church in general. Is this a healthy church that is going to be raising good godly women and good godly men? It may be that you're looking for a strong Christian leader. Well, if the pastor isn't a strong Christian leader, then strong Christian leaders aren't going to follow him, just so you know. Alphas never follow betas. Just doesn't happen. And so if you got a squishy, spineless coward in the pulpit, that's the type of men in the audience that will attract, right? And so it could be you're looking for a leader and you're not really finding them. Understand, strong men don't follow weak men. And so you got to be able to find a place where the good men hang out as well. I love, never mind. Moving on. We just got a lot to do. When in finding a spouse, also in Corinthians 7, Paul tells us that we need to marry within the family of faith. Meaning Christians, you should only be marrying Christians. That's it. It says it like this. I think it's 2 Corinthians, maybe 6-ish. Just don't be unequally yoked. And that means, hey, we're pulling the same way toward Jesus. We're serving. We're devoted to him. We're both Christians. So make sure that you line up on that one characteristic. Missionary dating is a bad idea. That means they look nice to you. They're not a Christian, but you're bringing them to church, and maybe they'll play the part for a little while, but no, you don't marry them unless they're Christians. And so that's what you're really looking for. You want to find, if you're looking for a guy, you're looking for a protector, provider, leader, lover. If they're not exhibiting those qualities, break contact and find somebody else who is. Men who are looking for a good wife, you're looking for her attributes as well. We talked about this extensively last week as well. And so without summing up the whole sermon on men and women and our respective roles and what we're supposed to look like, go back and listen to last week's sermons. That's the person you're looking for. If they don't exhibit that while they're dating, don't just roll the dice and hope you can change them later. Ladies, your ability to change us as men. I heard this. It's so funny because it sums up a lot. Guys will look at a woman and will be like, man, she is perfect. Just the way she is. And a woman will look at a man and she's like, man, with a little bit of work, he could be just right. So funny. It's tongue in cheek. If you're offended, get stronger feelings because it's a joke. It's a joke. I think it's funny. Next question. What does the Bible say about divorce? A lot, actually. This threatened to take over about half of my sermon today. What if, and there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. I'm like, okay, God hates divorce, Malachi 2. We know God hates divorce. What if there's abuse? What if it's physical abuse? What if it's bad, manipulative, emotional abuse? What if there's adultery? What if the trust is completely broken down? What if you're both miserable? There's a lot to talk about with divorce. And there was so much that I moved it to next sermon. Next sermon's talking about married with kids. And since divorce can really affect the entire home, not just the two of you, we'll be talking about divorce, cracking that open and going into it, what the Word has to say about it next week. But it ended up just being too much time today. It took up the whole sermon almost. So let's go on to our next one. How do we fight in a healthy way? Some of y'all are doing great. Yeah, you have a great relationship, but when you fight, it's a 2 or 3 day brawl. Or you just get way too passionate. You say stuff you don't mean. You end up hurting each other. You compare her to her mother or something like that. Big off limits. Well, you always do this. Well, you never help around here. And you can just say all kinds of things that tears each other down. Then it takes you days to be able to get over that because some of those stabs, you don't just walk away from that easy. The person who loved you most has just intimate access to hurt you the most. Because you love them, you're vulnerable to them. And so when there's an attack, it is brutal. That's why heated love can turn into something that feels like hate so quickly. When a love goes wrong, you've heard, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It's like, yeah, she loved you. She trusted you with her heart. Then you betrayed her. You broke it. And that passionate love turned into the opposite thing. And it's because they had access. That pain causes people who are hurt to then launch out and hurt back. How do we fight and disagree in a way that honors God? Now, here's something that is absolutely true. You will fight and you should fight. There's something called sanctification, and that's you and her are both trying to become more holy and like Jesus as you're growing closer to God. This is called sanctification, and guess what? That's fighting against sin. Becoming a better person is a fight. And if you're becoming a better person beside each other, you're going to have some fights. You're going to have some miscommunications. The selfishness in me is bumping into the selfishness in her. We're both selfish, fallen people. We're getting better, but we're still selfish. We're doing better than we used to, though, right? The Lord's got some miles in our rearview mirror. We're less selfish now than we were 5 years ago or 10. Certainly 15 years ago. We've covered some ground, and that's good. And that's made our marriage get so much easier. We both got pride. We do. I don't like to think of it. I like to think, I have arrived. No, I'm not. No. The longer I follow Jesus, the more I realize I'm nothing like him. I'm just not. I'd love to be, but the more I try to put off sin and to put on righteousness and to be a good, strong, courageous man of full integrity, just like Jesus, the more I realize I'm hopelessly far from his perfect standard. I've been following Jesus for over 20 years now. And the harder I chase, the more glorious I realize he was all along. That's Jesus. That's the sanctification process. Her pride bumps into my pride, and then we're at odds with each other. How do you fight in a way that honors God? How do you fight fair? Let's put up 1 Corinthians chapter 13 on the screen, and I'm going to read what Married by the Book would tell you. This is Married for Life. Marriage by the book works very, very well. When we try to do it on our own steam, it goes very, very bad. And so let's hear what the Lord has to say about what love is and see if this can help us in our fights. Love is patient. How many fights have started because you're just impatient with each other? Long day, you're irritable, you're just starting to fall asleep, and he cracks his knuckles. Ah! Patience. Patience. Love is patient. Love is kind. Dudes, are you harsh? Love is not harsh. Love is kind. Love is gentle with our spouse. Patient and kind. It doesn't envy. I want better for her than I have for me. I'm not envious of her or what she's got going on. My goal as a man is to make sure her life is easier than mine. That's what I want. You are given strength to be able to carry the burdens of a family, put them before you in sacrificial leadership. That's what it means. So dudes, you're supposed to have a harder life than your spouse. Exalt her, cherish her, nourish her, love her, be kind to her, be patient with her, be gentle to her. Chicks, you do the same thing. Cool? You just laughed because I said chicks. It's fair enough. I know I'm supposed to be like really holy and these and thous. Go somewhere else if you want that. I'm going to speak the same way up here that I do on the street, continuing. Love doesn't boast. It's not proud. How many times have you just refused to say you are sorry? Couldn't bring it to them. Not until they apologize first. What is that? That's pride. Were you wrong? Yes or no? Yes, but he did. Nope. Don't be stop it. Don't be arrogant. You know you're wrong. Drop your pride and apologize. They don't always need to go first. If you're wrong, repent. But it's our pride that has us in this locked out standstill. Well, I don't need to because such and such. Nope, that's arrogance. It's pride, right? Here, check this out. Love is not self-seeking. What did I just say? Most of your fights, it's selfishness problems. That's almost the totality of our fights comes down to selfishness. And love is not self-seeking. It's not selfish. It's not easily angered. How many of you have got a short fuse? And just anything will set you off. The family tiptoes around you because they just never know when you're going to fly off the handle. That's not a loving household. There's some very religious houses where it's a house full of stifling rules. Everything's proper, everything's stoic. Don't break the rules. Don't dishonor God. And there's no freedom and forgiveness and love in there. Somebody's quickly angered. It's tyrannical to live with them. Here's this. Love keeps no record of wrongs. When you fight, you should never be saying, well, you never help around. Avoid never and always statements. It is not fighting fair. If you're saying you never do such and such, or you always treat me like that, well, what are you doing? You're confessing that I keep a record of wrongs in our marriage. I've been tallying up the score, and after watching you for years or months, you are always being this way to me. You are never helping in this way. You are never appreciating me. There's your record of wrongs, right? You're not supposed to keep a record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. We tell each other the truth, even when it's hard. This is why you'll fight in a marriage. You're supposed to not just swallow what you believe and what you think is best for each other and yourself. You're honest with each other. Love and truth can never be divorced, and if it is, it becomes this hideous counterfeit thing. Love always protects. It always trusts. Maybe your husband or wife has broken your trust. You need to reestablish that trust. Love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. That's beautiful. What a high standard the Bible has for love. And I think people in our day and age just throw out this concept of, well, I love you. They have no real idea the way that God has loved us with this never-ending, never-failing, always forgiving, graceful kind of way that covenants and says, I'll love you forever no matter what. I'll never leave you or forsake you. And that kind of stubborn love is unthinkable in the mainstream. And we accidentally, through our sinful depravity, our selfishness, our pride, our self-seeking, our wrongdoing checklist, where it's always balancing out whether he owes such and such, we bring that into a marriage and we destroy it. Let's look to the model of how we love each other and we'll start fighting fair. Beck and I have decided that we are not going to keep records of wrongs. We avoid always and never statements. You always do this. Nope, off limits. Not allowed to do that. Not allowed to compare them to the spouse, to their parents. That's a big no-no. Let's see, what else? We have a code word that allows us this was a get out of jail kind of card, a pass. Like if all of a sudden tempers were flaring up, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing red, I'm getting upset. We're just able to say our word and we're able to walk away from it. I'm like, hey, I'm real upset. I'm going to say something I don't mean to. I need to walk away. I need to pray. I need to get alone. Our code word's orange. If I say the word orange or she does, it's like immediately no more questions, no more dialogues. That word for us over the years was basically put a pin in it. It's, here's an issue. This is a serious topic of conversation. I want to pause it so that I don't hurt you or say something I don't mean. So I'm not trying to shut you or me up. The word comes with this connotation. Because I love you and don't want to hurt you, I'm losing control, and I would like to be able to take a time out, to calm down, to pray, seek the Lord, and then I promise we will come back together and discuss this. And it's going to be within 24 hours too. We're going to get together right away. But right here in this moment, I'm about to sin. Anybody ever just saw red? Just, everyone raise your hand right now. All married people, raise them, or I'll call you a liar. Don't make me do that. This could be a happy Sunday. No lying. Everybody's seen, just, get so upset. Can't do that, guys. You can't do that. You're going to have to fight for your marriage. Some of us don't have that inclination as much. Yours is whenever there's conflict, you never get close to seeing red because you're not really fighting for your marriage at all. You just immediately, any conflict comes up, I'm like, okay, yeah, just sure, whatever. And there's never anything to have conflict with. You just roll over. You're so wildly passive. Now, the problem is after you've been passive for long enough, 5, 6, 7 years, you get tired of being steamrolled, even though you were complicit in allowing it to happen, and you become passive aggressive. And that's because you're constantly allowing the spouse to get their own way. Then you get tired of it and you're unappreciated and you never listen to. And then later it bubbles up in this root of bitterness, which has grown into this massive edifice that you can't even deal with. It's passive aggressiveness. You can't even deal with your problems. Some relationships act like this. So instead of fighting it out and figuring out how to get better together, you just kind of sweep it under the rug. Nope, it's not worth fighting about. Yes, I'd say marriage is worth fighting for. It is worth fighting about. Let's just fight in a holy, godly way, as according to 1 Corinthians 13. But if you have this erroneous thing where you won't fight for your marriage, I'm like, oh, nope, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. You just take a problem and you sweep it under the rug. Works kind of well for a few times. You avoided the fight. Whew. Pretty good, gents, right? Wrong. What ends up happening is under that rug, a little anthill emerges of your problems. And that grows and grows until finally it takes up the living room. And there's no chance to sweep that out the door. It has consumed the household of all this unresolved conflict. And because it's undefined, you can't even name what it is. It's just years of what you feel is abuse or neglect or unresolved conflict. You can't even really bring it up and talk about it. It's just this feeling of anger and upset. Why? Because all the little building blocks of that was a bunch of unresolved conflict. So it is critical that we keep our houses clean and nothing's under the carpet. If you have a big conflict, you must work through it. That can be challenging and that can be difficult. We don't want to be harsh, code word orange. Baby, we'll talk about it. And we don't want to be passive, which leads us to be passive aggressive, then miserable, and then divorced. That's what's going to happen. Guaranteed. You are a ticking time bomb if you're not fighting for your marriage. Ephesians 4:26 says this. Be angry and do not sin. Angry is part, you can be angry and not sin. Jesus was angry, flipped a bunch of tables, made a weapon, a whip, and starts just lashing out, and people are running, terrified for their lives. Jesus was angry, yet his anger was not sin. A pro tip for you married, don't do that. Don't make a weapon. It was money handlers. The context was different. Be angry, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger and give no opportunity to the devil. I used to think that do not let the sun go down on your anger was a literal, nope, baby, it's 4 o'clock. The sun is setting. We got to solve this right now. We've got like 30 minutes left. I took it really literally of like, don't let the sun go down. That means if we get in a fight today or tonight, we must resolve it before the sun comes up again. And this is a very literalistic thing. That is absolutely not how I believe this text is to be dealt with. What the text is saying is don't put off conflict. Don't sweep things under the rug. Be very quick in solving this conflict. Because if we get in a fight at 10:30 at night, the sun is already down. And as we talk, maybe we're just both whipped tired, and don't have a big problem. It's just I'm burned out. I have no emotional energy left. She doesn't either. It's been a tough day. The kids were crazy. She's dealing with a crisis or something like that. I'm just throwing stuff in. I'm not giving you a glimpse into our life. It's a little bit more theatrical for y'all up here. Our home is actually pretty peaceful and chill. But I realize as I'm saying this, it might sound like chaos, and it's totally not. But I'm trying to identify because though my house is certainly peaceful and joyous and a loving place, Becca and I have had certainly some difficult years where our home has not felt like that at all. I can speak on this because I have been there. And when I say some of this stuff, it's because I have fallen short so many times. And guess what? I'm not done. I'm still falling short. But our fights aren't as bad as they used to be. And our resolutions come much quicker. And our fights are very seldom compared to they used to be. Meaning, we're growing over time, right? All right, very good. What Ephesians 4:26 is basically saying is don't let conflict sit and marinate. So we get in a fight late night. Sometimes we just need to go to sleep. We wake up, we talk about it, and it was a nothing burger. We've woken up and sheepishly been like, sorry. It's just like, I love it. I'm like, I'll make coffee. And it was nothing. We were just tired, a little irritable, and there wasn't even a really big fight that we went to go have it out in the morning, and there was nothing. It was like, I was just grouchy. And she's like, I was grouchy too. We good? I'm like, we're great. And that was it. You know, my misunderstanding of this has had us sometimes up late into the wee hours of the morning, battling something out, which was really just I'm sleepy. Don't be an idiot, guys. The worst of our curses comes out when we are fighting unfairly. Colossians 3:18 and 19 says, wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. You notice in our fights, the wife who's supposed to submit, no way is she submitting? And so instead goes loud and proud, not submitting at all. And the guy, what's he do? He goes full on harsh. And so what happens in our fights is the worst of our sins comes out and it looks ugly. Women, you're usually sinning in that nag and dominate kind of way. Don't speak to me that way. You're not allowed to. No, you don't come back in here. You're commanding, and that's not going to go bad. And dudes as well. You're super harsh back, and that's going to spin everything in a spiral, and that can be really bad. Or you'll do the sin of Adam and become extremely passive, roll over, and just say, okay, yeah, whatever. And this is stonewalling. Stonewalling, you just emotionally cut off and be like, okay, whatever you say. And then you just go watch TV or play video games or do whatever passive guys want to do with their free time. And you just check out and shut off. And that's not a good way to resolve conflict either. Here's another thing. Sometimes it's not a big fight to resolve. It's just a bad day. How many of you just had a bad day? And you just communicate with your spouse. I'm like, hey, I've had a bad day. My energy, I'm a blinking red light. So don't take anything personally, and I'll do my best to not be a monster. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's her, not me. No sweat. And I'll just make it really easy. I'm like, great. How about we do a pick-out dinner? Me and the boys will just take care of ourselves. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, I got you, baby. And I'm just going to give her some space. And guess what? That happens to me all the time. Mondays are my hardest day. And so when I come through the door on Monday, it's not like any other day of the week. The family knows Daddy is a blinking red light. I'm just waxed energy-wise. I put my stuff down, and I'm able to just chill out. Nobody asks me to do anything right when I get home from work on Monday. About 20 minutes of recovery later, now I'm ready to reintegrate with the family, but I'm just low energy. I'm easily annoyed and irritated, and I hope I can trust y'all where I can just be honest with where I'm at. I'm trying to get better, but I just got some real limitations on who I am and where I'm at as a man. And just Mondays are tough. And my wife is so loving, recognizing my frailty and shortcomings as a man, and her in love sees that, and I've communicated it to her. I'm like, hey, I'm a blinking red light, and I don't want to hurt you because I adore you. You're amazing, but I am all kinds of prickly. So, and she in love, not because I demanded that, she's just really extra kind and sweet to me on Mondays because I need it, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm daddy mode and husband and rock and roll, but Mondays are tough, you know? Sometimes it's just a hard day. Back off, give them some space, and that's what love requires on those days. Is this practical? Is this helping anyone? Good. I'm really trying to make it very practical. Here's another question. How do you keep the fire from going out in marriage? Don't you want a healthy marriage? Years and years in, I want to make my grandkids horribly uncomfortable because they catch me just making out with grandma. That's what I want. I mean, like dentures in a cup. I don't care. I'm like low dip in over her walker, you know, just, my fake hip is clicking. I don't care. I'm full dip, just loving that granny. Don't pretend you're ashamed. This is a brilliant, man. I have no shame of this. I never want the fire to go out in my marriage, and it won't. Not on my leadership, not on my watch. And she's dedicated to the same thing. Let's love each other wildly forever. Does this sound like a plan to you? Let's be romantic, and let's make good memories. Let's have lots of fun. Let's share hard truths. We'll walk hand in hand through difficult times and tragedy, but me and you, baby, no matter what, forever. When we're happy, when we're miserable, I just want to be with you as we walk through this life until my last breath is drawn on this side of eternity. Me and you forever. That's the thing. How do you keep the fire hot in your marriage? I keep telling you how long I've been married because I'm more proud of that than anything I've ever accomplished here on earth. I'm in my 17th year of marriage, and it's better than ever. It is better than ever now. I would choose this 17th year over marriage than my first year any day. First 3 months were awesome, though. But then, like that back nine, that got a little tougher. Anyway, just being honest, there's a curve. There's a curve. Very good. How do you keep the fire from going out? I'd say be best friends. I don't have any friends that are females. I see y'all, and I like y'all. You're cool. You're great. Hey, girl. Yeah, what's up, girl? And I never know how to relate to women that aren't my wife. So I'm kind of like, hey, side hug. Like, high five. Give me knuckle. I don't know what to do with you. Real good with one woman, not really good with any others. Very proud of that. And I got limits. I'm like, there's no chance I'm going to be texting any girls. I'm not sharing any intimate details, just one-on-one with any females. I got dude friends, and then I got my wife, who is, we're one, and she fulfills every single need that a woman possibly can. She is mine. She is my best friend, bar none. No one else is even close, and that's how design is. Some younger folks have like a spouse and then a best friend of the opposite sex. I'm like, this is wildly inappropriate. You're taking a role the husband should fill and outsourcing it to another male in a very inappropriate way. Maybe you won't have an affair with that person, but you will eventually. It's already crossing a line into something that will domino into catastrophic results. Don't even crack the door to something like that is my recommendation. Now, girls, don't ignore me for the next few weeks. We're friends. I like y'all. Well, let's keep it right where it's at, But me and you are never going to go get lunch together alone, And that's great. That's fine. But me and my best friend right there, me and her forever. All that right there. So make sure that you are best friends, sharing life together, enjoying each other's company. You want to be with them all the time. Let's also have fun. A lot of people, you get so sucked into the tasks of surviving and paying bills and dropping off the kids at this event, and I'll drop them off and you pick them up and then clean the house. We got company coming over Tuesday night, and then in just the flurry of all the activity of life, you forget to stop, breathe, look at each other, and just have some fun. Get out and have some fun, right? Your house should be filled with laughter. Remember when you were dating? Y'all were having a lot of fun. You could still be dating and having a lot of fun. What stopped? Well, you got busy and you got lots of responsibilities, and responsibility sucked all the air out of your marriage, and so that the thing that left was fun. Figure out a way, listen to me, figure out a way this week to have some fun together. Laugh until you cry together. Just go do something. Silly and frivolous and have some fun. That's good. That's good advice. Take that to the bank. A third thing, don't leave unresolved conflict in your marriage. That creates a root of bitterness, which grows and grows and will eventually destroy your marriage. Just like the carpet metaphor where you're sweeping under the rug until it's an insurmountable mound that you can't even deal with anymore. Don't let unresolved conflict destroy your marriage. Conflict comes up. You got to deal with it, work it out in a godly, good way. Ignoring it is not a godly thing to do. It feels holy. It's not. It's demonic. Last thing, date. Date. Go on dates together. This is great. Now, in the bustle of normal life, all the responsibilities that comes with kids and work and service, all kinds of things going on, it's very difficult to have structured time to invest in your marriage. But you need to. You must. Some of us would cite finances are a difficulty. That's a real thing. It's like, man, you get a babysitter. I'm like, all right, that's $70 if you're gone for this amount of time. And then we go out, and in Biden's economy right now, you get 2 appetizers, and that's $98. I'm like, I just can't afford to date anymore. I'd say this. I'd say, yep, I know. It's expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than the divorce you're heading for. Date your wife, or you will lose her. It's true. You got to date. Now, how do you do it on the cheap? Well, my wife and I recently, I think this was 2 dates ago, we just went to the college campus, Barry, down the road, And we just held hands and we walked around. And we talked and we were flirty, and that's it. We just walked around. Cost us $300. No, just kidding. It didn't cost us anything. It didn't cost us anything. Somehow the federal government's going to send me a bill for that. Somehow they'll tax walking. Oh, you say it as a joke, but it's going to be true. It's going to be true. Go for walks, play games. Maybe if you can't afford a babysitter, what you do is you go on a double or triple date with other couples here in this congregation, and y'all drop all the kids off on one unsuspecting babysitter who will rue her existence when she realized she signed up for like a group of 12 rugrats running around Chaos on Wheels. And so maybe you could spring that on her right there. You got to pay her extra if you dump all the kids on her. But still, when you pool babysitting money and you 3 couples go out together, now it costs way less for y'all. And it's fun to go out in kind of a group. That could be a good thing. Well, another thing you could do is you have one night a week where you banish the children. Kids, go to your rooms. You are not allowed to come out unless you are actually physically dying. Maybe if you're like missing an arm, literally, kids, I better see an arterial bleed with arcing projectile blood if you come out of your room. But you guys, y'all go in, and this is a special thing for y'all. Boys, y'all need to build the world's most epic fort, or y'all, and we'll see it in the morning, or just put them down to bed way early, give them snack, whatever it requires to get them out, and then you two put on some music, have some red wine, play some games, do something where you're really face to face, right? You're not just checking out toward a movie or something like that, but do something, right? And you can do a little date right there at home. Get creative, but date your wife. Date your wife. Take the initiative. Date every week, right? What about gay marriage? All right. So I wrote out a quick little history. Marriage, the definition of marriage, has always been one man and one woman united before God for life. So it's marriage, the definition of it, like the word for us. It's always meant a man and a woman. So all of a sudden, you take a same-sex couple and you put the marriage on. I'm like, no. The word itself literally means... Did y'all know that we're in a day and age where words are just being redefined all the time? There's a major documentary out that's called What is a Woman? And that seems pretty straightforward because it's pretty straightforward, an adult female human. But in 2024, in the day where truth is under attack, we're renaming that. And now nearly half the country can't tell me what a woman is anymore. A woman is someone who calls themselves a woman. That's literally the definition that's trending. Or redefining words. This word was recently redefined. In 1993, Hawaii attempted to allow gays to marry. This was struck down. The local legislative body in Hawaii struck it down for the public good, is what they said. In 1996, Congress enacted the Defense of Marriage Act, which was supposed to protect one man, one woman, united for life before God. So that passed Congress in 1996. So Hawaii or no other place could try to pull this stunt again. In 1999, Vermont gave gays the ability to have civil unions. So now you're able to have some legal federal kind of protections as a married couple, but it's called something different, civil unions. And California would call it domestic partnerships. Now we're going to get to some big change. In 2012, under the Obama administration, the Defense of Marriage Act would be overturned. So actually this whole gay marriage thing, it's a pretty brand new thing. It really was allowed in 2012 for the first time ever. In 2022, now under Biden, the legal definition of marriage will be finally changed. This is 2 years ago, so this is all very recent. 2 years ago under Biden, the legal definition changes from a man and a woman to two individuals. Right? So they've literally changed the definition of the word. Marriage is supposed to be one man, one woman. That was God's design. God is not subtle on talking about what he feels about gay marriage. Actually, the Bible doesn't speak about gay marriage. We invented this thing by redefining the word. But he does talk about homosexuality in general. Let's lean in and read it. There's a good bit of text here, so buckle up. Here we go. Now, the context of this, it isn't homosexuality, it's idolatry. But homosexuality is listed in this, and God speaks to that, like Paul goes on a rant on and homosexuality, which is a grave sin, and then he expands why it is and how it's so bad. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things, idolatry. Therefore, God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. Listen, because they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So lusts of hearts, exchange truth for a lie, dishonoring bodies. There you go. So you see the case building. You've got the context now. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. This is unmistakable what this means. It's a dishonorable passion, according to the creator of the universe, the creator of men and women, the creator of sex, a dishonorable passion and an unnatural relation. Verse 27, and the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion or lust for one another. Men committed shameless acts with men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteousness decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they do not only do them, but they give approval to those who practice them. Question. Could Paul have possibly been more clear that homosexuality is unnatural, that it is dishonorable, that it's contrary to nature, that it is a shameless act, that you should receive a due penalty for your error, that it's of a debased mind, and it's one of a litany of things that people do which enrage God? It's as clear as possible. Now, in our day and age, and only in the last few years, a bunch of pastors standing up who fear the congregation and the mob more than they fear God will not read you these, and then they will reinterpret them as if you can interpret this any other way except it is. And by the way, this is not the only text. There's multiple texts. This is just a very explicit one. This is where it's at. But they are basically cowardly men standing up, telling you what your itching ears want to hear rather than what the real counsel of God is. I'm not going to do that. You can hate me for it. Everyone can stand up and walk out, and I'll just be preaching this sermon to my kids. Hey, kids, this is what God thinks. Everyone hates what God has to say, but we're going to talk about what God has to say. Let the whole world boo me and hate me, but I'm going to read the counsel of the Lord. May I stand ultimately before the audience of one so that if I have the fear of shrinking before people hating me for it, people are terrified to say anything that might cause them to hate them. And that's why we fear, you either fear God or you fear man, but you can't do both at the same time. If you fear God, you don't fear men. If you fear men, you won't fear God. You'll please men. So I'm not pulling any punches, guys. You know, I'm not going to stay on this too much longer because we got other stuff to do, and I don't want to beg the point, but some folks philosophically will wrestle with this. I'm like, well, how could God charge a gay with error? He's the one that made him this way. Gays will say, well, I was born this way. So surely, if I was born this way, it's okay. This is erroneous thinking, and it misses the entire nature that we're born into. We're born sinful, guys. Here, let me make the same argument. Hey, I was born gay, so it is okay for me to do Gay stuff. I'm born selfish. And since I was born selfish, it's okay for me to never have to be giving or generous. Because I was born selfish, I have a free pass to be selfish for the rest of my life. It doesn't really hold water. It doesn't matter that you were born sinful. And all of us are born with a different cocktail mix of sins that we're more predisposed to. Well, there's your burden. There's where you're going to need to lean into Jesus for healing so that we can move from our starting point, which is fallen nature, impure, and move to a place where that can be redeemed by the power of the Holy Spirit so that we can be pure. On Easter in Washington State, our planting church, Grace City Church, Wenatchee, had a young man come up who was repenting of living his gay lifestyle. Now, this young man committed to follow Jesus and put that impure lifestyle aside. I think he's still going to struggle, guys. I think that's going to be his path. I think it's going to be a struggle. But I think he's going to lean in and trust the Lord. And over time, the Holy Spirit is going to redeem his fallen desires to have pure desires that are noble the way that God intended them to. That's what I think is going to happen. By the power of the Holy Spirit, that'll happen. But he did the first step. We shouldn't we shouldn't take homosexuality and put it over here like it's this special identity sin. It's really lumped in Romans 1 into a whole bunch of sins. He's talking about gossips and covetousness and slanderers. That's bad. People who are arrogant, people who are disobedient to their parents, people who are gay, it's just one of a whole bunch of sins, right? Yeah, you got a whole big mix of sins. Yours are different than yours. Let's all struggle forward for purity and selflessness and humility to the glory of God. That's it. It's not like some folks will just be like, so you're a Christian, so you hate gay. No, you don't. We don't hate gays. We hate sin, and homosexuality is just one of a whole bunch of sins. It's just one more of a sin. Like pornography is a sin. Stop it. Premarital sex, it's a sexual sin. Stop it. You're not supposed to sleep with anyone that's not your spouse. That's it. Right? Adultery, it's a sin. Same thing. Same thing. It's a sin. We're all battling against sin. This one, though, seems especially upsetting to the Lord. So stop it. Next one. This is a nice segue. What does a healthy sex life look like? Now, some of you are immediately trying to I have kids in here. Like you want to earmuffs and you want to do the thing. On this note, because I was sensitive to this, I wrestled on this. I'm like, man, maybe I should just, hey, censor check. Hey, everybody, get the kids out of here. And I'm like, no, go with me on this. Kids, for all human history, have been growing up, not in the big bustling cities that we have in our artificially climate-controlled houses. Kids are growing up for all of human histories, watching animals raise and mate and die. Kids by the age of 6 years old have already seen mating and death. And now they're not really seeing that in our protected little bubble-wrapped worlds, right? Now, furthermore, because we're so perverted with the advent of the internet, all these different scenes and movies, and kids are seeing stuff really, really early. Do you know what the age is for the average first viewing of pornographic material? If you heard 8, is that a guess? It's a guess. I've heard 10 and 11 in different studies. That's the first one, right? So here's the thing. This was interesting. I was on the range this week shooting with a bunch of dudes, 15 guys, and I asked them, because I was curious, hey, how many of you guys received the talk from your parents? Birds and bees stuff. How many out of you 15? Guess how many raised their hands? 2. Out of 15 people, how many of you got the talk? 2 men in that room. And then I qualified it. I'm like, well, what did that look like? And one of them confessed. I'm like, well, he was basically, hey, make sure you don't do such and such, no pregnancies, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't really the talk. There wasn't explaining. It's kind of like, hey, you're in teenage years, don't do anything stupid. I'm like, that wasn't the talk. That wasn't nuts and bolts kind of birds and bees stuff, was it? And then it was only 1 out of 15 that actually ever even got the talk. I know of one bride whose mother, realizing she never taught her daughter anything about this subject, as her daughter is about to walk down the aisle, she says, "Oh no, quick, tell me everything you know about intimacy." She had missed her chance. Now, what's interesting, my boys are reading through the Bible, and they came across these words at like 9 years old. 9 years old, of like, "Daddy, what's sexual immorality?" I'm like, "All right, buddy. Well, it's when mommy and daddy wrestle together." No. Do some wrestling, right? So when they were even younger than that, there was times where it came up, and we gave really general responses. You just give general responses. Today, some of you will get general questions, and you can try out a general response. As they get older, they'll ask more specific questions. Be ready with specific responses. The thing is we in kind of ashamedly hide this and delay talking about it, and then it's never really a good time. If you don't teach them, mainstream culture will. Teach them earlier than you think. My boys learned about nudity by looking at classical art sculptures. That's where we learned about nudity. They learned about sex from seeing animals on the farm, and then reading the Bible and hearing this sermon series, which afterwards, my 10 and 11-year-old, we went to eat and we talked about this. Extremely, like, no veil anymore. And guess what? They actually dealt with it really, really well. You should do that. And so if your kids ask generalities, if they ask specifics, it is time. It's actually overdue. And I want your kids' first hearing of this to be from the Bible and from church. I want to beat them to the punch. And so some of you may be a little upset that I spring this on you. And I'm like, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. No. It's your job. You should do it. I never got the talk. Most of you never got the talk. And it should be happening earlier. You need to beat mainstream culture to the punch. Got it? So anyway, sorry, not sorry. Answer real generally for the young kiddos. And then for older, a little more specific. You can gauge it. So there you go. What's healthy sex life look like? Well, it looks way better than hookup culture. I don't like this because in the hookup culture, online, movies, the idolatrization of intimacy and the debaucherous romps, that's what looks like where the good time is. When really, statistically, within inside of a marriage is the most satisfactory and the most frequent intimacy is happening. So what mainstream culture says, I'm like, oh, you're married, now everything's lame. You're single, rocking and rolling, party it up. And when really the reality is the opposite. But the problem is the folks that are actually have healthy marriages are doing it according to healthy marriage principles, and we don't kiss and tell. But we're having a blast. More frequent and more satisfying than the rest of the world. Married people have more frequent and more satisfying than the rest of the world. Why? Because it's following God's plan for sex. Sex is a gift from God in which He uses it to weave you together. It's a good thing. He wasn't embarrassed when He made it, and you can kind of give God a shout out. Just do that right now in your own heart. He's the inventor of this. That's pretty cool. And I want us to be able to redeem this just a moment, where we're looking at what the Bible has to say about some of this. Let's go to Song of Solomon. Buckle up, guys. It's a little scandalous, a little racy, but man, I talked to Pastor Chris before this sermon. I talked to my wife, and like, you're not going to share the, oh, I'm not. I'm going to share something way more PG. He brought me to the banqueting house, and His banner over me was love. Sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. Is this passionate, guys? Oh, yeah. His left hand is under my head, His right hand embraces me. So this gal, loving her husband, enjoying this union, you notice flirty, passionate, sick with love. I mean, this is passionate stuff. This Marriage is burning super bright. And what I'm not going to do as a gift to all of you is I'm not going to interpret any of these metaphors. I'm just going to kind of like float it out there. There you go. Embraces. There you go. It's that. That's what it meant. Very good. Good job. Metaphors are awesome. Let's go to Proverbs 5:18 where there's no metaphor. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. A lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her, well, that's a metaphor, but this part isn't. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. This is hot and heavy stuff. If you want a holy marriage, then lock the door, drink some Gatorade, put on some music, and be together to the glory of God. Seriously. That is a God-given gift meant to be enjoyed, and it is a healthy thing. It's not a shame thing. It's actually a really good thing. And so we need not hide this subject from our kids. This is a good thing. It is a gift. And it's you need to beat mainstream culture to the punch, which means you need to talk about this yesterday. Very good. Last thing on sex, 1 Corinthians 7, verses 3 through 5. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. All you dudes are like, yeah. Say it. Just 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Paul is like, you're welcome. Baby, I'm not supposed to deprive you. You're welcome. All right, very good. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Our bodies belong to each other. Now check it out. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement, for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Some of you are not intimate often with your spouse, and this is a horrible thing. Something may be broken. Maybe there's bitterness. Maybe there's unresolved conflict. Maybe there's some kind of trauma in your past. Something is broken. So what I'm not saying is that I'm like, hey, suck it up, buttercup, in the sheets. Like, no, there's something that needs to be dealt with. Maybe you need to reach out to us, the church, and talk to that. And some of the godly women that we have in the congregation that you'd be able to speak to, or dudes, us men. Let's figure out what's going on. But the Lord's plan for marriage is for you to come together frequently. It's a regular, blessed, wonderful thing. And so if that is not happening in your marriage, you need to deal with it right now. You want to have a holy marriage? That means lots of wrestling. You pursue her, she pursues you. Lots. Got it? Now, what's lots? You figure it out. I don't know. You figure it out. But remembering 1 Corinthians 13 will be our guide for how we come together and decide what is an appropriate amount. 1 Corinthians 13, the verses we read that together, and then, hey, let's talk about wrestling, baby. Where are you at? How you doing? Let's have a chat, and then you can go forward with that. Another thing to this era, I want to be as practical as humanly possible so that our marriages aren't sabotaged. I'll have I was working out with my boys yesterday. We got a little home gym, and I was trying to suntan a little bit because I got a vacation come out, and from here to here, I like glow in the dark. I'm pasty white. It's not pretty. And I'm like, I'm going to get some tan. And I'm feeling very vulnerable, but my metabolism has slowed down. And that's pretty lame, And so I'm a little squishy right here. Don't test it. Bro, I will knock you into next week if you test this. This is between me and the missus, and now my sons, because Judah, who's walking behind me, he had heard me mention of like, baby, I'm getting squishy here. I do not like how I look. I need to do this. And she's so sweet. She's like, no, you're great. And I'm like, so would you mind if I got stronger and better looking? She's like, no. And I'm like, exactly. All right, I'm going to go hit the gym for you, baby. I work out for a few different reasons. I work out for my job. I work out for good health. I work out so that she likes what she's seeing. And if she likes what she sees, well, that may pay dividends for me. That's a good thing. I'd like to be attractive to my wife. I feel like maybe, just maybe, there may be a blessing on the other end of that. Also, God gave me a body and he told me, take care of your temple. And what that means is he doesn't want us to go to McDonald's, stuff our faces with poisonous food that makes us really unhealthy. I don't want that. And so I am trying to shed a few pounds. I love candy. I've got a sweet tooth. I want to eat candy. I want to eat all the candy from breakfast and lunch and dinner. And then I want a mid-evening snack. And I want candy all the time. All of it, whatever. Call out a cool candy. Oh, I like Reese's. But I'm not really the chocolate. I'm like the fruity one. Oh, why did you say that? That was a really good one. Anyway, I got a sweet tooth. And I haven't had any candy since before Easter. And anyway, I'm trying to look better for the missus. This is a way I love my wife with my body. This body belongs to her, so I can't just go out, get tatted up, or shave my head, or do something like that. Really, even how I dress is mostly about how she wants me to dress. I'm a dude. I don't care. I just don't want it to take a long time. I don't want to feel emasculated by what I wear, and I don't want to feel like a slob wearing sweatpants and stuff. She also doesn't want you to wear sweatpants and look like a slob either. And so we dress for each other. We're trying to look good for each other. It's part of how we honor each other. Men, we are running out of time. Last question. My marriage is in serious trouble and is perhaps dead. What do I do? Miracles are from the Lord. No matter how far gone your marriage feels, the God who parts Red Seas and raises people from the dead can certainly save your marriage. It is not too far gone. It is a lie from the pit of hell to say it's too far gone. He could rescue. He could save. Now, next week we have more to talk about with marriage and divorce, and we can get into some of these other things. So some of you will be like, well, hold on, whoa, I've got an exception. I'm like, great, put a pin in it. I was saying a generality. We'll talk about exceptions next week. Got it? So I get if you had a challenge to what I just said, challenges next week. I hear you, word. But for now, just generally speaking, understand that God is God of miracles. And so no matter how hopeless something seems, God could do a miracle. And so do not discount the power of God. Number 2 is, let's recognize that running God's playbook rescues marriages and builds them healthy. This marriage series, this 3 weeks, is about building a healthy marriage. Do it God's way, and man, marriage can be such an amazing, earth-shattering blessing that is a blessing to you, your spouse, your kids, and their kids, and their kids, and all the people around you, as your marriage actually is a testament to the power of God, and it preaches the gospel through your selfless sacrifice for each other and your adoration in the midst of the fact that you're both fallen sinners. Another thing is get help. The church is actually built for this kind of thing. The church. So bring it to the church. You're having big issues in your marriage? Come to us. We want nothing more than to make your marriage work. We'd love to be able to help. We're not even going to charge you for it. We just want to see your marriage blessed, and so come to us. I'm going to close with this. This is Harriet's story, and then we're going to have communion. I've had so much fun teaching this series with you, even the hard stuff. I've really enjoyed this. Next week will be our last one. Harriet is a woman that is a hero in our household. My wife has had the pleasure of actually meeting this woman, so this is not an anecdotal story. This is actually a real-life hero, and my wife got to hear her story. Harriet was married for years. And she was bringing up kids, and her husband and their marriage was strained. He seems to one day, after years, fall into a bit of a funk, a depression, and then one day just leaves. He just left her. And here she is. Her kids are not fully grown. They're older, but they're not grown. They're not out. She has to all of a sudden enter the workplace. And she's scrambling to pay bills and get everything done. She ends up falling far behind into debt. She declares bankruptcy. And then, under the strain of it all, suffers a nervous breakdown. Checks into a psych ward. Her daughters come to her and says, Mom, what are we going to do? And at that time, she kind of clips out of it and she realizes, oh, I can't even wallow in my own misery and what's happened to me. I got to take care of these girls. So she gets her act together. She gets in business and she starts kind of making a comeback. And all the while, she's reaching out to God, asking God to help her. Help me, help me, help me, help me. One night, she's praying to the Lord, and the Lord answers her in whatever way that looked like. I don't know what that looked like, but she did get a word from the Lord where God, in a moment one night, showed her how very difficult she had been to live with. See, up until that time, it was all about he left me and his faults, and he ran out on it. And guess what? She had every reason to be upset at him. He has wronged her, and she's right. But she'd never owned and understood her own part. Why did he leave? She recognized she was a huge part of the reason he left. It wasn't just his junk. He wasn't all of a sudden falling into happily ever after with the wife of his youth, having a great time, and was like, peace out. He just jetted for no reason. She came to terms with the fact that she had ownership in the separation. So he had left. She'd never divorced him. They were just separated for 10 years. 10 years. Can you imagine? He just leaves you. Now, her friends are telling her, divorce him, get rid of him. And she just felt like, no, I'm not. They just separated. 10 years. He was gone. After the Lord had dealt with her, she started praying for her husband differently. And she ended up finding him and praying for him and owning her own responsibility in the separation. She began this crazy process where she started wooing him back. And that's exactly what happened. He did come back. And a couple that was completely done, 10 years separated, he came back. And for the next 13 years, they built a marriage that honored God. Wild joy. They built their dream house. Their kids came, their grandkids as well. And the Lord rescued a marriage that was completely done, that was completely shattered. And that is just such a beautiful picture of redemption. Her name in our household is one of the titans, one of the greats. And I'm like, what is that but the gospel of Jesus Christ applied to the most broken of marriages? And he brought it back. And I'm like, man alive, you think your marriage was bad? You think your marriage is without victory? There's no light at the end of the tunnel of don't you know who our God is?